everybody. We are live and we actually made it on time tonight. So that's a first, but we'll see who all shows up tonight. Hope everybody's having a great weekend. It actually hit 40 here in Michigan, so that's a bonus to get rid of some of the waist deep snow we had. So tonight we are going to talk about, I'm going to bring my friend and co-host, a man who sleeps in a coffin out, and we are going to get the show rolling. So with that, here comes my co-host, Kenny. Mr. Kenny, how
What's
you
up,
doing?
Brian?
How are you?
Oh, busy. Just been editing and working away on stuff. So stay into the grind. Bruins got a big win earlier, and yeah, that's about it, man. What have you been up to?
It's reason to celebrate if your Bruins got to win. Me, myself, have been, I worked this morning and a lot of shoveling. And how about you? What have you been up to?
Well, just been trying to stay warm myself because I am up in New England and it does get cold up here, but I'm a big hockey guy, man, so I'm not afraid of the cold. And yeah, that's about it, dude. Just pretty styling with Sugar Sway and the Bruins starting to get it rolling, 5 game winning streak. So yeah, man, that's how we roll up here in New England, eh? And so about it. Outside of that, just editing for Midnight Lycanthropy and repeat. I mean, no exaggeration. I just edit every day and hopefully sooner than later I can get my thread monetized, and that's about it, dude.
There we go. That's sweet. So we got some people rolling in. So now I'll say hi to people. So we got Lorna here, a little twisted, Mr. Roger, hello. Glad to see everybody coming in tonight to join us because a pretty interesting show tonight. So how do we want to some interesting things about some missing people and why it seems to be a select group dose of missing people?
Yeah, pretty interesting stuff, man, for sure. And to anybody that does follow what I try to get out there, missing people in the national forest and cave systems, well, that is definitely something for sure that I really try to direct a lot of time to, and also prehistoric and modern day predator behaviors. And this case in general is something that, well, a person I like to pay a lot of attention to that is extremely smart, yet, same thing, he also is, well, very involved in things outside of cryptids as well. He happened to kind of bring some of this to my attention, and I should give him a shout out because he's the man. That's Emerson Peterson. So if anyone ever wants to check out what he's doing, he's got some great stuff. And yeah, that's about it, man. So I don't know if you would like to kind of just give your thoughts about that first, and then what I sent you, more or less touch on it. It's up to you, man.
Well, first thing I want to do is address something so just so everybody knows. Uh, and the moderators are awesome here, but again, any unwarranted comments or really, really out of space ones will just not be put up. So they're read, but just so you know, because the moderators are really good about catching it even before I can even see it. So thank you for those who are doing the job. So the whole thing with the recent, I mean, it's crazy. I thought when you first sent me the topic that we were going to be talking about Indigenous women in Canada being abducted way back, in the 1700s or something like that. But this is 2001 to 2015.
Hmm. Pretty gnarly stuff. And again, anytime my science team as well as myself, and yeah, shout out to everybody at the Midnight Society. I love all y'all. Anytime we can send some intellect to a subject that is considered quality, well, you got to make sure to send it out there. And this is something that, well, is definitely a theory. It was a hypothesis, but yeah, as it starts to piece together, it's a pretty quality theory. And more or less, the only people that could probably pick it up from here is Canadian law enforcement, because it's all out there, and and how it all ties up. It's more or less how they want to handle it now, because I mean, I'm here in the United
Yeah.
States and I'm not up in Canada. So
Yeah. So I'm going to throw this up real quick because with these couple topics, we're probably going to, get a little deep, and we're definitely throwing theories out there. So I'm just going to show this real quick. There we go. Get that out of the way. Throw that disclaimer out. Yeah. So apparently, Indigenous women make up like 4% of the uh, female population in Canada, and 16% of them are targeted for crime, which is a pretty crazy, everything from trafficking, harassment, beaten up. So I don't know why Canada is such a target for this. Do you have any theories on why in Canada are the laws different for maybe a little more I don't know, with Justin Trudeau, you never know what he's doing. And 67% of all assaults are reported on non-Indigenous predators, while 70% of assaults go unreported. That's crazy.
yeah, you pretty much just tapped on it at the end right there. That's why it's just because Canada has chosen to enunciate it more to the public as to what's occurring. Where I do know here in the United States, a lot of reservations have no sort of faith in political aspects because of what has been done to them, so that it don't transfer that information in general. Usually they're self taken care of, meaning you have somebody that has gone to school to be a law enforcement or whatever is qualified for, and they're in charge in their communities, etc. So I think it's occurring everywhere. I just think this one specific area that runs from Canada down into Washington is just something, because Canada has chosen to enunciate it more, that we're able to hear about it.
Do you think it's even worse because a lot of the stuff when you get into tribals dealt with community? They keep it, in-house. And that was brought up the other night on one of Grizzly's shows. So, and I've seen it in action here where, if a tribal member is involved, it's tribal only, not county. And then you never hear about it in the papers or anything. They go through that community court.
Yeah, I agree with all that, because I have a ton of Indigenous friends and they just don't even talk about their history in general. It's orally passed down. So again, yes, that stuff's way worse than what's being reported. I usually tend to lean in the direction with anything that's reported. It's probably a little bit worse than what we're actually gathering.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, to me, I mean, it's probably understated, if anything, which makes it even more scary. Especially when you were looking at things that you had sent me about. A total of 19 women in the Highway of Tears cases of being unalived. And then that was only some of the 49 women from a particular serial person. So,
And that's where it gets really interesting because, as you had mentioned, person, I'm tending to believe persons, meaning a large group of people. And that's what we're actually going to end up touching on. But first off, I just want to put this out there for everybody to be safe. It doesn't matter whether you're male or female. Yet, if you are a female and you're putting yourself out in the world without any sort of protection, it's in a perfect world shouldn't have ever been an issue, but in a reality based world, it is an issue. And always make sure that whether you're hiking, you got a pet companion dog with you that can defend you, you have some sort of firearm or at least mace and things. And the reason I say that is Yosemite was an area where there was somebody that was a serial unaliver going around that area. And what this individual was doing is specifically targeting women because he knew that they couldn't defend themselves. And one of the women that was working the case said it sent chills through her bone to hear him say to everybody that if he ever saw a woman by herself, that was his next target. And she said that she always travels by herself. And this one individual, would pick up hitchhikers because this is back during the hippie time where apparently everyone thought it was cool just to roll with people you have no idea about. And he, explained about one of his victims. She was 5'2", no more than like 100 to 105, 10 pounds. Easy, no resistance at all. As soon as she got in the car, knew it was over. So yeah, sadly, women are going to be targeted as well as youth because it's again something that's just easier to have done. And when you're seeing somebody that is participating into that, they're not valuing any sort of life. They're now almost animalistic, meaning again, they're going to prey on the weak. And I'm not saying women are weak because women are awesome, and I'm very pro advocate for all kinds of women stuff. All my majority of my hosts and really good friends are women, so it's not about that whatsoever. I'm just saying that even for myself, I'm 6'1", 158, maybe 165 pounds. Someone like Brian's size, say wanted to, do something nefarious to me, hits me in the back of the head, get me down on the ground, starts choking me out. Sure, I've been in situations where I can defend myself, but now picture someone like I just mentioned, this 5'2" woman that weighs like 100 pounds. What is she going to be able to do in that situation now, especially when she has nothing to protect herself? And these people target people like that. And this is all going to tie into some of the stuff we're going to speak about.
yeah, it's funny you mentioned me and my size because of the fact that when I was taking jujitsu and doing a little MMA, I quit jujitsu because they always picked me to be the demo dummy because they're like, okay, you're the worst case scenario at this point, so you get to be them. It's like I got hurt more in practice than I did in the 2 times I was in a cage. It was like crazy. I got tired of being hurt, so I
Yes.
was like, that's enough.
And it's
Plus,
just one of
even
those
somebody
things,
I'm
unfortunately.
sorry, even somebody my size, I have had a pew pew pulled on me, and even though it was only a 38, it looked that big when you're looking down the barrel. So that's kind of an equalizer too, even if you're not a big guy and happen to be a thick chick, you know, you're not necessarily safe that way either. Um, Somebody mentioned a movie. It sounds like they did a movie on this. Okay, here we go. Have you guys heard of Conspiracy of Silence movie? Early 90s Canada. Indigenous are just so disrespected, especially females.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate thing that pretty much occurs all around. And now in this area where this stuff was unfolding, I mean, I'll pretty much, I can't remember what order I sent them to you and my friend. I mean, you brought this one up first, so I pretty much will, I guess, give my portion as to what's occurring on this, but I kind of want to save what I believe and lean towards no is happening. I mean, because it would seem like person, but it's not. It's persons, and more or less, yes, on this road, we believe these persons because of testimonial from them are highly responsible for targeting women and especially indigenous women on this road. And they themselves said that they would look for people that were 18 to 35-ish range that could hold their own, but they weren't going to be able to hold their own when they were abducted because there was multiple people taking them, and they would take a ton of what looked to be healthy indigenous women off the side of the road and put them in these nightmare fuel situations that we'll talk about.
Yeah, I mean that it sounds to me like it's more than one person, and let's see who pointed that out. The fact that Canada just is such a big and remote place to hide. So even if you got several people running around, it's going to be pretty easy. I think Canada even has a law that if you stay hidden for a year out in the bush, that they forgive it. Something weird like that. And then it's talking about the fact percentages are even higher that Native Americans, so where you're talking, Washington and stuff, 55% to 65% are going to be assaulted in some way. So I'm not really
Great
sure
stuff, man. Huh?
why they are being targeted. That's crazy. Because, I always thought they were treated with respect. I didn't realize that they're obviously one of the highest rated if they're over 55%.
Yeah, it's one of those tough things to potentially speak about on YouTube without getting yourself in trouble. And that just has a lot to do with way more than what I'm going to say, but to be as modest and clean sailing through that question, it has a lot to do with poverty ridden areas where these things occur, man. And if you look at any area where it's poverty stricken, a ton of these things occur. So unfortunately, a lot of indigenous cultures were put into poverty ridden situations too. And I think that is just a very basic response to that.
Well, Lorna's saying, yes, that is everywhere, but it seems in this case to be targeted. No one has pew-pews up there, but my circle of friends usually have something small and sharp in their pocket if out alone at night. I mean, you got to have some form of protection. Plus, like you said, it's hard to talk about this on YouTube without getting dinged. So I'm trying to figure out what I can say and what I can't say at the same time. You got, like you said, the highway, but so you really think it's more than one? As far as those, what is that, 1959, 78 women?
Yes. And I believe the next thing I did send you is a group of 5 pretty healthy men that are listed as a certain title that I can't remember that all just vanished.
Oh, got it right here. March 17 marks 29 years since the Lost Boys of Pickering disappeared.
All right. And the thing with them is, again, they were all friends, all healthy, all different age ranges. They fit into that category too that I just mentioned earlier. They are seen on different cameras earlier at points in time before they supposedly vanished, talking to people, and they are never seen again after getting into this vehicle.
Yeah, although this one was a gas can that belonged to the 14-foot whaler that the boys stole. So maybe apparently somebody was pretty mad about that boat. I'm sure they were one of the first peoples to be, suspects, but this is
Yes.
kind of stuff that gives a guy being a bad name, because odds are it's probably a guy, and it goes to show, like it or not, you get a little too much testosterone and a little too much uh, beverage of choice. And if you have a lot of these guys have, what bodybuilders like to call little man syndrome. They know they're not the alpha, but they're going to be the alpha of something. So if it has to be, and again, I know some very strong women, but women and children, that's particularly one issue. And then you always get, I hated my mom, so this is why I did it. But this is what gives guys a bad name. So for 29 kids, make sure I said that right, not 19.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting for sure.
Yeah.
And when you look at the psychology, though, of the people that do participate in that, I mean, I believe there have been some female serial unalivers, but that's all male behavior. I mean, the statistics and science points towards all that. And, well, can't really sit there and deny science and statistics. So, pretty interesting stuff. And again, I don't think there was just one person's involved in that situation. I think it's persons, and it's the same persons that are involved with indigenous women.
Oh, you think it's the same ones? And
Yes.
it looks like there were 6 kids. 29 years since they've been missing, so that's my bad. I need to relax a little. Little Twisted says, seems like I remember reading that. They've all been disrespected at one time, I can tell you. Yeah, there's a reason, unfortunately, that most women call guys pigs. And I forget how many active serial eaters the FBI said are currently active. I mean, it's, what is it, in the 40s, I think, right?
More than anybody would ever prefer to hear. That's all I can comment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right. And I remember one of the first ones was women-wise. I think the worst one was Eileen Warnos. Remember her?
I actually do not, my friend.
Yeah, she would be a lady of the night in some cases, or pretend she was broken down in others, and then hitchhike, catch a ride, and then relieve someone of their breath and take their money, and so that her and her uh, girlfriend could stay on the run. So, and her count was in the 20s. So I think she was.
No, for sure. I mean, that will occur definitely with females and such. I mean, I don't think it's not against human nature, but if you look at the majority of it, it's definitely usually participated by men, unfortunately. And there was also something else that is going to tie into this that I would like you to touch base on. I believe I sent you a map in an area where there was a forest fire.
You did. Let's see. The map was of (1989) fire season in Manitoba. You think
So
maybe
yes, if
there's
you would like to kind of describe that map and that area to the audience, so they kind of get an understanding before I speak next.
yeah, so let's see description. Oh, it's got a picture, but it does talk about the abstract of fires. 1989, a New Yorker record was established for the number of fires, 1,147. An area burned 3.2 million acres in Manitoba. These fires resulted in unprecedented evacuation of 24,500 people and cost the community 68 million. First of the fires occurred in Manitoba in mid-May, followed by a second peak in northern Manitoba between July 16th and August 2nd. Both periods were characterized by fire ignitions, severe fire weather, and fire danger and extreme fire behavior. General description of the events took place during the historic fire season. The picture is absolutely stunning, but it doesn't have an exact map. Gorgeous lake surrounded by beautiful trees, sunset, looks absolutely massive. Looks peaceful, but looks very densely forested.
So you're gonna have to fill my brain in with, I do not know, in comparison to where I am in Maine, if Manitoba is on the West Coast or East Coast.
Manitoba's on the west, right? Above Washington, just
Because I know
across.
above us is like Montreal and Toronto's above you. So yeah, it should be near that area, which again would make sense and will make sense to what I'm going to touch base on now after, because again, we believe the persons that are involved with those missing boys and the indigenous women and these forest fires are all tied into one.
Well, I'm definitely interested in hearing this because I am beginning to wonder. Oh, Bigfoot grizzlies in here. Beginning to wonder, as you're putting things together, sounds almost like there was a burn to get rid of more evidence of people that were found. And maybe I'm way off base, but that's just my theory. Especially if there's more than one person. We're talking indigenous, so it could be kept hush hush what's actually going on. I saw where the U.S. looked like it was giving more power to the tribal people to inspect not only indigenous people, but Americans as well, non-indigenous people. So some of that could be kept under the roof as well.
Yep, very much so. And I think people will be able to piece it together before I verbally piece it together for everybody. Yeah, if not, though, it's definitely going to get some stuff clicking upstairs for some people. And, like I said, I am not the very first person to actually have had this brought to my attention. The very first person that actually brought this to my attention, like previously stated, is Hammerson Peters, and he is up in Canada. He dives a ton into indigenous lore, some sort of cryptid mythology lore, just in general, an amazing author, just a legend. And I've had a chance to speak to him a few times. Unfortunately, he is so stacked up that I don't see anything in the foreseeable future where I could ever get a chance to really sit down and talk to him. He doesn't really have time for anything along the lines of that. But I just wanted to make sure to give him a shout out because he is, well, in my knowledge, the first person to kind of start bringing clarity to this. And recently, there were a few people, but one specific individual that was passing away. He had stage 4 cancer, and he went on to some platforms and started speaking about, well, how he was about to, yes, take a very lethal dosage of some sort of opioid because he was in so much pain and there was no cure for him, and that he felt like he needed to get this off his chest. And he, again, isn't the only one to have spoken about this, not directly this one, but very similar things. And he is of indigenous culture. And he was saying that, well, his tribe and also a ton of other tribes that were wealthy up there would go on periodic, I don't know if it was yearly or the exact time frame. Like I said, Hammerson Peters does a great job, but they would go on hunts, okay, where they would, yes, go hunting for people. So they would specifically look for, like we earlier talked about, people that would fit that age range that could defend themselves. And he would then explain that they would bunker them up, feed them well, and obviously some of them would get out of control and they would have to be unalived at the spot. But then after this, they would be given either a hatchet or some sort of small, knife, and they would be set out to try to get away from these people. And there would be anywhere from 100 to 100 plus of these individuals that would be taken for this hunt. And then you would have now the danger side to the hunters, though, because there really is no rule. And this gentleman was showing the rifle he specifically used, and so were some of the other people. And it was an indigenous-based rifle that looked, a little bit older. And this had been occurring, like we had mentioned, with some of the dates you had stated a while ago. So yes, that would make sense for the style of rifle that would have been using. But they would have dogs that they would let loose as well that were vicious dogs. And these individuals are saying that some of them would be unalived by people basically that had beef with you because there was no rules out there. So if, say Brian didn't like me behind the scenes and oops, I just tripped and shot him in the back. Oops, no worries. And also some of these people would be unalived by the own dogs they had released, but they would track down these people. They would find people that were half consumed by the dogs, barely alive. Some were in better shape, and some of these people actually fought off and unalived some of these indigenous hunters that were up there, partaking in this. But when asked if they ever worried about any of these people getting away, they chuckled. They said no, and everyone was like, "Why?" They explained the location, which, as we're stating right now, is in the middle of nowhere, and that they were barefoot and such. So no matter how far they ran, even though they got away from these people, the hunters, they are never going to be found and they're never going to survive. So it doesn't matter. And he also then pointed out what we've spoken about with the large forest fire, about how two of these younger men had barricaded themselves up into a park ranger setup and were basically trying drastically to call in for help. And this guy and his brother and the rest of their little group that were hunting them set it on fire, which then caused a massive forest fire up in Manitoba.
So were they trying to get the people that were still there, or were they turning around and trying to get rid of the evidence?
They were just trying to get the people up in there because they were able to unalive them because they were just legit up in this structure. So I mean, they didn't have to track them or anything. I mean, they pretty much just like something in the oven, just lit it up. But because of that, it ended up causing a massive forest fire. And like these gentlemen were saying, there is evidence that if people go to this location, he was speaking about how there's an old factory slash power plant up in this area and also some other buildings that they would set up shop in. And this is where they would keep these people. And that, yes, they would go and get all this money and funding because they were wealthy tribal members, and they would specifically go on hunts to round up all these people and then set them loose during this massive, yes, expedition slash hunt that they would participate in. And you would have to be of special descendant to even participate in this.
Now, I have heard of people doing, but normally it's like one person. I mean, to sit there and, as you and I talked about on a show, basically, if they're just collecting people and then, fattening them up for keeping them just barely breathing for this hunt, that is, I mean, way beyond cruel and insane.
Yes, that's pretty messed up stuff. And it's definitely more than one person. And like I said, I mean, sure, these people could have just been making this all up. Unfortunately, they are not here with us anymore. I should say fortunately, because if they did participate on all this, it didn't seem like very quality individuals. But there's really no more answers we're going to get from those individuals because they aren't here anymore. And especially that one person that was speaking drastically about it that had mentioned he was going to, do what we had spoke about. So that's definitely, not a good thing. And when you look at it, well, you have all these people who are missing. Okay. What are the odds of just those 6 boys being taken unless like they obviously, were brought into a situation that seemed friendly most likely. And yeah, we already spoke about how easy it is to get hitchhikers and a ton of the indigenous women. But these individuals specifically speak about targeting that road and these indigenous women.
I wonder what, maybe it was because of the fact of the poverty and they wouldn't go unreported because of, we'll say,
Bingo.
habits. Maybe it wasn't uncommon for them to go 2, 3, 4 days without being home or contacting anybody, so nobody reports them for a week.
Yeah, it's a lot that's going into it. And like I said, I mean, there still needs to be more research. But if you look at how it all ties in and some of the testimonials and the locations, there are those buildings there. These women are going missing. Those men are missing and have never been found. There was a forest fire. Okay. Those are all facts, 100% facts. Sure, now we again have testimonial, which is human, which, yeah, classifies as falling into errors potentially. But you have these people that felt like they needed to confess something. And specifically, one of them, more or less, before he came to the end of his existence. So, again, sure, could this and these individuals have basically just hoaxed all of this, meaning what they're telling or what they let out? Sure. Would that be something someone that was about ready to become unalived do? Is put out a hoax? I don't know enough about that. It usually seems like people that are making confessions on their, final moment beds would seem to tell something that was maybe a burden to them. But again, I'm not a psychologist and I don't specialize in that sort of topic. But it just seems pretty interesting because either, like I said, these individuals did all this research that you and I are speaking about and then just came up with, oh, well, this fire was from this, But I don't know. All those people are missing. There was that forest fire. There has to be something going on. And why did these people speak about this hunt? And why was it first people? It's just bizarre.
Yeah, it seems like people want to get stuff off their chest when they're on their, you know, final bed, and like I don't want to get dinged for this. Al Bundy's brother Ted, uh, solved a whole lot right before down to the last moment. So it definitely would make sense to want to get that off your chest and maybe even gloat a little because you're kind of getting the last laugh that the truth's out. If you're that deranged to do the hunt in the first place, then now all of a sudden all these people know about it, so you get the last laugh in their mind.
Yes, and one of those individuals said that he didn't necessarily even want to partake in all of this, but his brother and his cousins and stuff had pretty much like forced him into this. So again, that would bring a little bit more clarity to, like you said, kind of getting the last, like, well, I never even wanted to do this. Doesn't matter if he did it, so he's just as guilty, but then kind of trying to get it out to the public. Yeah.
Yeah, imagine if the poor guy didn't know what he was getting into, does it once. Now you're kind of uh, just screwed at that point, because they're not going to let you just walk away from it, and then you participated once, so now you know the secret. Now you got to keep doing it. So maybe he actually did have a little not want anything to do with it.
Yeah, it's really bizarre stuff, man. And like I said, I like to deal with science and facts. And the science and facts are that human testimonial is hot garbage. I mean, that is the truth. Facts are these people are missing. Facts are there is this area where a ton of indigenous women are missing. And facts are there is an abandoned facility up in that area that they claimed. Facts are there was a forest fire, and facts are one of these structures did get burned down. Okay, were there people up in there? I don't know. I mean, that's where the questioning comes into line of not really fully being able to verify more outside of that, because the rest of it is testimonial, but everything else has been verified. But how are you gonna supposedly have to find some remains of people? But again, we're talking about Canada, so good luck with that. And I mean, I don't know though, how much more evidence do people need? I mean, if you have individuals saying this and large groups of people are missing, I mean, I don't really feel like people need to be a genius to end up getting here and being like, well, maybe there might be something going on.
Well, yeah, and like you said, more research would be, because I wonder if there's a common thread between the people, where they all uh, indulge in things we shouldn't indulge, or was it all poverty? Wonder what that common thread was, why those particular, or was it completely random? But and the fact that you
I
mentioned now
will.
a structure being down, possibly, others being in there waiting to be. That's one way to, mass cremation.
A lot of people don't seem to, I either would like to say, accept or understand that human beings are no different than any other animal out there. I mean, look at primates. They are very intellectual as well and have a dark side. Orcas, I mean, anything. So, again, there are people out there that, well, are more primitive and prehistoric in how they view things, meaning they don't view in modern day times that being civil is something that matters. I mean, it's like an anarchist, more or less. I mean, so when you take these people they don't value what a normal person values, and they're going to then team up with each other because like minds usually roll with each other. I mean, not in all cases, but in a lot of cases they do. But the thing is, people are always like, hey, I can't believe somebody would do that. Well, that's a mistake from the get go because time and time again, humans, whether it's yesterday or millions of years ago, show their callous of how they look towards one another. Okay. And in modern day times, sure, that is barbaric. But if you then take away the modern day term of barbaric and you were say to try to explain that to one of our ancestors, that doesn't register. So again, now with somebody that doesn't fall into lines of thinking that way, to them, something isn't barbaric. And as messed up as it sounds, it's kind of, well, to me, I believe every animal and thing is just as alive as every person, right? So if people, hunt animals, okay, right, whatever, that's considered the norm, I guess. Well, now you're going to have these other people that have this next level of lack of caring. So just because hunting is acceptable, well, you have deranged people now that are out there hunting and such, and then take it to the next level because, like some of these people say, hunting humans is a whole nother level of sport, and it's occurred throughout history. And I'm going to make a reference to House of a Thousand Corpses because Rob Zombie's the man, and one of the characters in there, Otis, hunting humans ain't nothing like hunting humans. They all run like scared you little rabbits. Run, rabbit, run. Okay. Yeah, pretty messed up, right? Well, yes, these people that are doing these things are messed up in the way we would say somebody's messed up, but they don't view it like that. Okay. And that's a very fatal flaw to everyone to think that every person out there is going to have a peaceful or clarity base to their mind. I mean, it's something that dwells inside of us, and you would like to think most people avoid it, but then time and time again, you see these people that act primalistic, but they're highly intelligent. The majority of serial unalivers are walking that genius line, but they don't care about, like I said, compassion and things like that. It doesn't matter to them. Like one of those individuals in Yosemite that was doing that said he had learned that other serial unalivers would have an MO, whether it was the Boston Strangler or, etc. They would do a certain way of unaliving people. He specifically did every person in a different way so that there wouldn't be an MO because they would not know if this is the same person doing it now. So, yeah, all screwed up, correct? But then it shows you how intellectually intelligent this individual is, meaning he's so meticulous, he's so smart, but he's so messed up, but he's able to still keep in the side of reality with you and I right in front of us to protect and act in daily life. But then he dives into his primalistic side, which most people would never act like that unless you were being attacked by a bear and you go savage, or someone's trying to take away your family and you got to go savage and just do anything you can to survive. Well, they just do it at a click. So here you basically have a highly functional psycho, kind of like American Psycho, more or less. That movie does a great depiction of that.
Yeah, and another one would be Dexter.
Again, yeah, great depiction of basically how someone can be, except I mean, he actually, I guess, is somewhat doing something good. He's never unalived somebody innocent. But moral of that is, yes, people like that participate. Okay, here's a great example too. All right, well, someone could be a high up special trained Navy SEAL, right? And they could be a serial unaliver. Most people don't know that these people do that, and they need to get their advice too. So when they come back per se. This is all just, there's no whole facts to any of this. I'm just using an example. Say they come back and they're, done with what's going on, but they still have that urge. Well, when they were able to be in the military, they're smoking people all the time, potentially. So there's your urge. Well, now when they come back, where can they go do this? They're highly trained. They can just go to national parks. These other people that aren't highly trained, like the other gentleman I just mentioned, imagine somebody like that now, a trained assassin that has this darkness inside of them that they need to get this fix of just rolling up on the average people that are camping. I mean, that's a quick, very simple end of story.
Oh yeah, if they can't get a job at like a PMC, those private military corps, and
Mm-hmm.
it does mess them up. My friend was a sniper in Desert Storm, and he had to, not only do the target but the family as well, so there were no tails. And having to do that several times over. I mean, he is just now finally getting. And that's one thing too, is they train you to do it, and then they tell you it's okay. This is for your country. It's okay. Go do this. These are bad people. And then when you get home, nope, don't do that no more. Not even to the bad people. Can't do it. It's like, how do you just shut that off? And for some people, they don't want, like you pointed out, they don't want to shut it off. They enjoy that thrill of that hunt. They enjoy the, adrenaline rush from lining up the crosshairs and the trigger.
Exactly. So, I mean, in reality, it's really not that far fetched to then think everything we spoke about really could, be occurring like that. Because as much as we would like to think everyone is awesome, you really never know. I mean, I told you about one of the examples that occurred to me. I don't know if I did, but I mean, I'll speak about it right now. I've had two really creepy interactions with human beings. Okay. Like I always say, I've never had interactions with cryptids or anything, but these two instances were straight up nightmare fuel. When I was, I don't know, maybe 16 or 17 ish, I lived with my parents, obviously still, and they'd built an extension off the side of this place we were, and I could, go out of the back door, to my car or with my friends without waking up the whole house. So I don't know. I always thought night was cool and the full moon and stuff, and I would just go out and walk around at night and just chill. Well, it was pretty late, man. It was like, I don't know the exact time, but it was pushing well past midnight, and I'm just walking, so there's just street lights everywhere. And all of a sudden, I don't know the exact distance again, because like I tell you, human testimony is crap. So even as I'm telling you this, I was 15 or 16. If we rewind back to this, there's probably some details I'm leaving out or that I'm not fully sure about. That's proven facts. Either way, though, as I'm walking, I see this car come out, and I'm like, what the heck? Whatever. Doesn't really seem out of the ordinary. I mean, no one else is up at this point in time. Everyone's lights are off. I'm just enjoying the moon and the stars. And they just like turn really quick, like they're gonna come towards me. And there was these side circles that would connect around, like a half oval back to the main road. And this dude cuts down the quickest. Well, I shouldn't say dude, because I have no idea still to who it was. This person, boom, goes down one of these side circles so that it would connect back out to the main road closer to where I was. And I was a pretty well distance from my house at this point in time. And I was running so fast, but felt like my legs weighed so heavy as I'm trying to get to this side brush that led behind like these houses back to where I could run this path to my house. And I'm not going to make it without this person coming around the corner and then seeing me unless I dive into this bush. I'm not going to be able to like run through the bush and keep running without them seeing me above the bush, you know what I mean? And them knowing I went down this path. So I just dive into this bush, and this individual just pulls out and then pulls around so that their driver's side is towards the bush. Their window is down, but I can't see inside because all the lights are off. And the car is just like dun, 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 just like running, idling. And I'm just sitting here in the bushes, just buckled down as best as I could. I don't know how long it was, but this person just sat there looking, and just sped off. And I got up and ran back to my house afterwards, after watching the car, and hearing it pull up to the top of the hill. And that was a pretty scary interaction right there for me, especially at that point in time, because I was right near my own neighborhood and my house. And that was bizarre. And the next one was when I used to act and model, I was down in the city doing some set stuff and some portfolio things. And on my way back, I didn't have my GPS was like messed up. I didn't really have the greatest phone at this point in time. So I couldn't get a hold of my grandfather. This was when I was like 18 or 19 because I was using his car. So I got off course, obviously, because this is when we had to read maps, dude. And when you're 18 and 19, who the heck cares about reading a map? So I was not very good at reading maps. And yes, everyone should care about reading that. So I end up pulling off into a gas station. And as I'm pulling off into there, I see somebody that has a Maine license plate. Well, I'm like, yo, this is dope. So I walk up to them and I asked this guy, I'm like, hey, are you heading to Maine? And he was like, yes. And why do you ask? I was like, well, I don't know. I saw your license plate and I'm kind of lost and I don't know how to get back through where I'm going to get up to Maine. And he's like, yeah, sure. Make sure you gas up here though, because I'm taking a back way through what I now know was the White Mountains. And there's not going to be any sort of gas or ways to stop for quite a long time. So I didn't have the most money. And this was like a V6 or 8 LeSabre. So it took a ton. And I mean, I don't know, my grandparents are going to fill it up. So I put in as much of the gas that I could, and I start following this dude. Well, as we're driving, it starts becoming dark now, and this dude's whipping pretty fast through what I now know or the White Mountains. And as I'm looking off to the side, I see what looked to be, I don't know if they were older campgrounds or newer ones still in use. I don't know, but they were little kind of camp areas where you could pull up in your RV, etc. This dude just keeps whipping through there, and I can't get any cell phone service. I can't get any service. So all of a sudden, my phone gets a little bit of service, and I see my grandfather's calling me, and he's at this point in time I should have called him and told him I was coming home, and I'm trying to explain that I was like lost and where I was, and I'm breaking up, and he then finds out that I must be, in the White Mountains because that's one of the back ways. He's like, what the hell are you doing there? And then the phone cuts off. So I'm like, what the heck? So I start like speeding up a little bit and flashing my lights, just trying to hope maybe this dude's going to pull over for a second. God doesn't even acknowledge me. I'm like, okay, strange. What? Everyone would have seen that. So then I pull up beside this dude and he's going like 50, 60 through these like mountain roads. So I'm having to speed up beside him. I'm honking my horn, like kind of looking at him because I just want him to pull over for a second, like, oh, what's going on? Doesn't even look over, doesn't even acknowledge me, dude. I'm like, what the heck? Okay. So then I pull back behind him. And, at this point in time, I don't know, man. I am pretty much just in the grace of my fate. If something bad's going to happen, I have no way to get out of this situation except to keep following him or try to turn around. But I don't think I have enough gas just to turn around and go back to where I was. So finally, we end up coming into an area where you can see like a street light and wait a second, civilization again. And it was like a small convenience store kind of. And he pulled into it and I pulled in because I had to put some more gas. And he started to get out of his car. And I immediately got up and opened my door because I didn't want him to come over where I was down in my car because what the frick, dude? And I had kept my door between him and I, but I was standing up now. And he puts his hand out and goes, all right, well, you're back to Maine now, but I highly suggest you shouldn't just trust somebody that you've never met for to get you home, because next time it might not end so well. Shook my hand very awkwardly, got into his car and left, man. So those would be the two most creepy instances that I've ever had with human beings, for sure.
Yeah, that would be terrifying, and I think your guardian angel or spirit guide saved your hide, because it sounds like he had one purpose in mind and changed his mind along the way.
Just what I mean about people just needing to be aware of, unfortunately, people that are out there and what could occur. Yeah, I know, Twisted, right? Some strange stuff. And I saw Joey say what's up earlier. I'm just reading some of the comments, and it's just an example. I mean, that's real life stuff, okay? That's not cryptids. That's not speaking about how prehistoric animals could still be in existence. That is 100% cold human facts and human interactions. And that's what I mean. People want nightmare fuel. It's out there. People don't need to make clickbait and things that aren't factual. I mean, there are nightmares that occur out there. And again, humans, unfortunately, for every beautiful human being out there, there's going to be somebody that, well, unfortunately, would fall into the darker realm. And I mean, I don't need to point them out to anybody. Look in history. I mean, look at how many messed up people we have. I mean, that's just what's been acknowledged.
Well, I'll tell you what, I don't think we could end on any scarier note than that. So why don't we tie it up? But because I mean, that truly is a story for bedtime nightmares. So what do you think?
Right? No, perfect. I mean, that's what it is, right? Stories for bedtime that will sit there and, give you something real to think about. And everything we talked about tonight, like I said, I like to talk about science and facts. So missing women, facts. Women are targeted, facts. Missing indigenous women in large numbers, fact. Large forest fire in Canada, fact. Okay. Well, missing group of boys that some are considered as adultish and men. So yes, fact. Burn down ranger station, fact. Now we question a little bit potentially some of the eyewitness testimonial, but again, those are all facts. And same thing with what I just told you. My two interactions with disturbing people. I mean, those are facts too. So again, I mean, people that are messed up are out there, and I think until everyone just realizes that, they need to defend themselves. I mean, this might sound so cynical, but it's not. So the person that just steps outside for a second to look up at the stars, you're thinking that. How many times does that happen where somebody is sitting in a van down at the end of the street and then sees that this woman is home by herself now or something? You have no idea this is occurring. You just went out to glance at the stars. You step back inside, you now have nothing to defend yourself. In a perfect world, you think this would never happen. But how many true crime shows show consistently that all these things occur? Again, the individual that gets out of their tent to walk to the restroom or the restaurant setup 30, 40 yards away, nothing to defend themselves, whether it's an animal, a cryptid, or some psychotic person just grabs you, pulls you off into the forest. No way to defend yourself. I mean, Hulu just recently did a documentary about a elderly man that you wouldn't think this guy could have done this, but he had a dog with him, and he also had handcuffs, and then he had a baton, and he would walk this trail that was walked enough, but not consistently busy. He knew when it was busy and when it wasn't. And he would 100% track women. He would find women that had dogs and use that to make up the conversation. Well, the women that got away always said that there was something creepy about him. And they got very lucky because other people came up in the area, most likely when this guy was stalking them, because to his victims, he would then follow them and he would bust them in the back of the head with a baton. Doesn't matter whether you're a male or female, and then handcuff you, put you in his van, boom, you vanish. Okay. These are facts. All right. It's messed up stuff, but it's truth, and just people should be really safe out there.
Exactly. And with that, we'll wrap this up. And as everybody says, tradition on the Bigfoot Grizzly Outlaw podcast. Everybody have a great night. Have a great weekend. And we will see you next week. So everybody have a great night.